for the daughter's body. The father decided to lock her up and enjoy her slowly. Very soon he came up with an idea. First he sent his wife away on purpose. Then he pretended to ask his daughter to help carry something. The rebellious daughter surprisingly agreed this time. But when they got to the basement, Amy discovered there was a hidden door behind the bookshelf. She found it hard to believe, but since it was her father, she didn't think much of it. It was this natural trust that dragged her into an endless abyss. Before Amy could react, the father quickly walked out and locked the secret room door. Seeing herself locked inside, Amy screamed desperately, but the specially modified steel door was too thick. No sound could be heard from outside. She was terrified and at a loss. She thought her father was just trying to punish her, at most lock her up for a few days. But when she opened the box he asked her to move, and saw it was full of her personal items, she finally realized it was all part of his plan. A wave of fear surged through her heart. After screaming at the top of her lungs, she tried to unlock the door, but the father clearly wouldn't give her any chance to escape. Even worse, if the wrong password was entered 3 times, the room would automatically lose power. Even the ventilation fan would stop working. Then she found a flashlight, and screamed into the air vent with all her strength. But when the father heard the sound outside the door, he simply covered the vent with a blanket, and stacked clutter on top of it, so that no one would ever find out. That night, the whole family sat in the living room, discussing how to find the missing daughter. Only the father sat silently on the couch. Soon it was the second day. Amy was still trying passwords, but nothing worked. She lay hopelessly on the floor, unable to understand why her father did this. On the 4th day she heard sounds outside the door again. She hid behind a pillar, and when the father entered, she shoved him and ran out the door. She thought she could finally break free from the devil, but she didn't expect there was another steel door outside, and it was soundproof too. Even her loudest screams were useless. Just like that, Amy was caught again and dragged back into the room. Then the father began to threaten her. As long as she behaved in there, he would provide a good living condition. Otherwise she would be severely punished.
Do you understand?
And so, the father did unspeakable things to his daughter. This film is based on a true story. It's truly moral collapse. Amy, who had been violated, curled up in the corner crying in despair. From that moment on, her life no longer had a father in it. And when facing Amy's boyfriend, the father claimed she ran away with some thug a few days ago, told him to forget about her, and never look for her again. The innocent boy thought he'd been betrayed, and left with a face full of disappointment. During the 21 days of captivity, the father brought some supplies. He even pulled out a cake from a bag, and gave Amy a long dress. The helpless Amy had no choice but to put it on. The father said today he was going to make up her 18th birthday celebration, then asked Amy what she wanted. Of course what Amy really wanted was freedom, but the father said that was impossible. She could only earn material rewards, but only if she worked hard for them. Amy tried to awaken his conscience, but didn't know his mind was already twisted. He didn't allow Amy to call him dad. Instead he made her call him darling like a lover. Amy had no choice but to obey. After hearing that he told her to come over, as expected, Amy was violated by the beast once again. It was now the 38th day. Amy was eating cold canned food like usual. She suddenly noticed the lid was very sharp. She touched the edge of the lid, and a spark of hope lit up in her heart. That day she dressed up carefully, held her homemade weapon, ready to strike when the father let his guard down. But he had already seen through her plan. He threw the girl to the ground. Just like that, unknowingly a whole year passed. The small room that once had just a shower was now completely filled, which also meant Amy had suffered countless times. She had gone from a young girl to a pregnant woman in her 10th month. Her water was about to break, and her father was nowhere nearby. All she could do was follow the book, and give birth on her own. Do this, then that, finally screaming in unbearable pain, with the cry of a baby. 19-year-old Amy became a mother for the first time, but the new life didn't change the father. He just brought a few basic supplies, and shamelessly said becoming a mother was an honor he gave her. Told Amy not to thank him. Such absurd words made Amy feel helpless. She quietly organized the supplies with her head down, but when she saw a fruit knife, she no longer had the courage she once did, knowing it would all be in vain. Soon 4 years passed. Amy's mother was still worried about her. One day she cautiously suggested hiring a private investigator, but the father furiously rejected the idea. He ignored his wife's feelings, and left in a hurry. Meanwhile the basement had become like a small home. The father shuttled between two families every day, playing different roles. Amy's daughter had started drawing and writing. She proudly showed the father her work, even though she had no idea whether the man in front of her was her grandpa or her dad. What's worse, Amy's belly was getting bigger again. This was the 7th year the girl had been locked in the basement. Her mother was still waiting day and night for her daughter to come home, but she didn't know her daughter was imprisoned by her husband in the basement, and had already given birth to 2 children for her own father. The father moved back and forth between the 2 families every day, playing different roles. Amy's daughter had started learning to draw and write. She proudly showed her father her progress, even though she didn't understand whether the man in front of her was her grandpa or her dad. If he was in a bad mood, he would come here seeking comfort. As a reward, the father brought them a TV the next day. Amy was thrilled. Life no longer felt so dull. Through the TV, the child could also learn about the outside world. The temporary joy almost made her forget it was still a prison. But it wasn't long before the child got sick. The medicine the father brought was for adults. Amy didn't dare give it to the child, and had no idea how much to give. The father simply said give half and turned to leave. He didn't care whether the child lived or died. This made Amy explode with rage. She could endure anything herself, but she didn't want her child to be harmed. Still, the father left without looking back, leaving Amy to face everything alone. Another year quickly passed. That day her older sister happened to run into Amy's boyfriend. After a few words, the boy couldn't hold it in. He asked why Amy ran off with another guy. Only then did the sister realize the father had lied, but she had no idea why he would do that. Meanwhile, in the basement, the child was bored every day, making constant noise, which made the already irritable Amy even more frustrated. Helplessly, she took out 3 flashlights and started playing games with the children. Just moments ago they were full of stress. Now they were smiling with joy, despite the terrible environment. Amy's attitude was incredibly rare. In that sunless cage, she silently endured everything for her children, burying all her pain deep inside, just to make sure her kids could feel some happiness each day. That night, the sister told the mother about the father's lie. The 2 confronted him. The sister even suspected the father did something. That made him instantly furious. Right then, the sister saw the keys on the couch. She grabbed them and went to the basement, because she had a feeling the disappearance might have something to do with the father, and he always acted strange about the basement. So she tried to look for clues there, but while she was searching, the father had already come downstairs. The younger sister glared at the father in anger, and demanded to know if he had hidden her sister. The father was furious at his daughter's accusation, but while they were arguing, Amy was struggling to deliver her 3rd child in the hidden room. But the small space couldn't hold 4 people. She suggested sending the baby upstairs, to help calm her mother's emotions. The next day, a baby's cry rang out at the front door. When the wife opened it, she found a note from Amy in the cradle, saying she couldn't raise the child, and begged her mother to take care of it. After reading the note, the wife was overjoyed. At least it proved their daughter was still alive. She happily called out to her husband, but didn't notice the note in the basket. The father pretended to know nothing. After his wife left, he quietly picked up the note. That night in front of Amy, he read the message aloud. He felt Amy had been living too comfortably lately. As punishment, he threw the red dress at her, and Amy had no choice but to accept it. But for the sake of her children's mental health, Amy still found joy in misery. She gave her love to her children as much as she could, and just like that, 14 years went by. Amy's oldest daughter had grown into a beautiful young woman. She had learned to dress herself up with makeup. The father looked at the girl, with a perverted gleam in his eyes.
You are very beautiful.
Seeing that familiar look in her father's eyes, Amy suddenly realized something was very wrong. The man stared blankly at his daughter, his eyes filled with perversion.
You are very beautiful.
The mother next to him sensed something was wrong. She quickly pushed her daughter aside, and warned him not to have any filthy thoughts, or she would kill him. But her words only made the father angrier. Their power was cut off again. After the outage, the ventilation would be affected. The daughter with asthma had to lean against the vent to breathe. Amy stayed beside her, trying to calm her down. Just like that, 17 years passed in the blink of an eye. The mother still thought of Amy every day, until one day something finally changed. Rainwater unexpectedly seeped into the basement. Seeing the droplets falling, a long-lost smile appeared on Amy's face. She knew it had to be caused by rain outside. She asked her 2 children to help move some things, then slowly climbed up, and tried digging through the wall using a spoon. As she kept at it, the hole really started to get a little bigger. By midnight, the 2 kids had already fallen asleep, but she kept digging. Thankfully, persistence paid off. Amy finally made a small opening. She quickly stuck out her flashlight to signal for help. The flashing light caught the neighbor's attention. The neighbor came over to check. To his surprise, it was the father who opened the door. When the neighbor mentioned a light coming from the garden, he immediately knew something was wrong. He made up an excuse and sent the neighbor away, then stormed down to the basement. As soon as he saw Amy, he began beating her without saying a word. After venting all his anger, he stormed off. What he didn't expect was that the beating had harmed the baby in Amy's belly. The eldest could only lean against the wall, listening to her mother's heart-wrenching cries. As expected, Amy's fourth child died shortly after birth. 18 years later, due to the economic crisis, the father was about to lose his job, and he took out all that frustration on Amy. He purposely talked about how well the third child was living outside. The clueless kids turned their anger toward Amy. They screamed and yelled at their mother. Meanwhile, Amy had already reached her limit. For 18 years, she endured everything alone to protect her children, but now she just couldn't take it anymore. She finally decided to reveal the truth, from how she fought back against her father, to being locked in the basement, until her son asked that question again.
When did you meet Dad?
That woman outside is not my aunt. She's my mother. John is her husband, and he's my father, but he's also your father. The daughter couldn't accept the truth, and her asthma suddenly flared up. She had to lean against the vent to breathe. Amy kept telling the kids that they would get out of here someday, begging them not to give up. Soon, the 19th year passed. The father lost his job completely, and the supplies he brought became fewer and fewer. Not enough for the three of them to survive. Amy tried to ask for more, but all she got was mockery. Her son couldn't take it anymore and exploded with rage. He wanted to stand up for his mother, but his thin body was no match for the father. All he got in return was another power outage. But this time, the father had a new idea about the three of them. Late at night, he connected a hose to the basement vent, and stuffed the other end into the car's exhaust pipe. He wanted to kill Amy and the kids this way. At the critical moment, Amy's third son suddenly came into the garage, asking what his father was doing. The father quickly pretended to be fixing the car, and brushed it off. His plan had to be interrupted. He rushed to the hidden room to check. As soon as he opened the door, he saw the eldest daughter seizing on the ground from an asthma attack. Amy begged him to take her to the hospital, or it would be too late, but the monstrous father didn't care. He refused, afraid Amy would expose him. Desperate, Amy promised she wouldn't say a word if he saved her.
Dad! Please, I just want to be with her, please!
After Amy repeatedly assured him, the father finally gave in. He took them out of the basement in the middle of the night. Amy looked at the familiar surroundings. There was no time for memories. She rushed her daughter to the hospital. Luckily, the girl was saved. Amy could finally breathe again. Afterward, the hospital couldn't find any records of the eldest daughter, so they asked the family to provide more information. When the doctor left, Amy asked to use the bathroom, but the father refused. When he turned to check his phone, Amy knocked over a cup of water, then lured him to the front desk. As he walked away, Amy finally took the first step toward freedom. Sensing something was wrong, the father turned to leave, but the police noticed his suspicious behavior. They quickly caught up and stopped him. After 24 years in captivity, Amy finally gained her freedom, and the monster father was soon arrested. The eldest son in the hidden room was also rescued. The movie is based on a true story. Elizabeth Fritzl from Austria was imprisoned in a basement by her own father for 24 years starting at age 18. She gave birth to 7 children. Not just 4 as shown in the movie. The real world is far more cruel than any film. The trauma she endured over 24 years will take a lifetime to heal.